Arma Reforger. This game is great, but it has some problems, and we're gonna talk about it. Arma Reforger is an interesting game. It has it all. The ingredients to be something incredible: beautiful graphics, immersive sound design, and powerful new engine that shows what the future of Arma series could look like. But right now it feels more like a proof of concept than finished experience. It has potential, but it also has serious flaws that hold it back. If these issues are fixed, Reforger could be an amazing military simulation. But it's in current state, it feels unfinished, slow and too limited. So, the pacing feels off. One of the biggest issues with Arma Reforger is its pacing. Now Arma has always been slower, more tactical experience compared to traditional shooters like Call of Duty or Battlefield. That's part of its identity, but the game realism is more important than fast action. But in Reforger, the pacing sometimes feels frustratingly slow. Movement feels heavily, and sometimes just getting into the fight takes ages. This wouldn't be a problem if the slow pace always led to rewarding gameplay. In Arma 3, for example, the long build-up to fight more actual combat feel intense and meaningful, but in the Reforger, that build-up often leads to nothing. You might spend 10 minutes running into location. Another major issue is lack of content. Right now, the game feels extremely limited compared to what players are used to in Arma series. The selection of weapons is small, the number of vehicles is low, and overall, the amount of gear available just isn't enough to keep things interesting. One of the best things in Arma 3 was variety of weapons and equipment. You had modern rifles, old school weapons, sniper rifles, submachine guns, and all sort of gear that allowed for different playstyles. But in Reforger you're stuck with just handful of weapons. This means that no matter how you approach the game, you're going to be using the same gun over and over again. And when the game is designed to be a military sandbox, variety is essential. Vehicles are another weak point. In a game like this, vehicles should play a huge role in strategy and gameplay. Tanks, helicopters, armored cars, these are the things that make this battlefield feel alive. But in Reforged, the selection of vehicles is extremely limited, which makes the world feel empty. Some people might argue that this is because Reforged is meant to be some testing ground for Arma 4, and that content will come later. But that might be true, but right now it doesn't change the fact that the game feels empty and repetitive. Players need variety, and without it, the game quickly starts to feel dull. Building and creativity keep players engaged, and one thing that Reforged does well is allowing players to be creative. The building system is actually quite fun, and a lot of people seem to enjoy constructing bases, setting up defenses, and creating unique battlefield scenarios. This kind of creative freedom is great because it gives players something to do outside of just shooting enemies. But at the same time, this isn't really a unique feature. Many other games allow players to build and be creative. The difference is that other games also have a lot of other things to keep players engaged. In Reforger, once you build your base, there is not much else to do. The combat isn't deep enough and the variety isn't there, and the game doesn't give you enough tools to really make use of your creations. That being said, the fact that players are spending so much time building the bases and setting up defenses shows that people want more to interact with the game. If Reforger expand on this system, maybe adding more advanced building tools, better base defenses mechanics, or even proper logistics system, it could become a much more interesting experience. The player base is a mixed bag. Another issue with Reforger is how people actually play the game. Since it's a sandbox, there is no real structure to how players behave. Some people take it seriously, treating it like a proper military simulation with strategy and teamwork, others just mess around driving vehicles into buildings, spamming voice chat, or generally acting like they are in casual multiplayer. This mix of playstyles can sometimes be fun, but it can also be frustrating. If you're trying to play seriously but half your team is just goofing off, it ruins the experience. This isn't a problem that's unique to Reforger. It happens in many multiplayer games. But because Reforger doesn't have strong system in place to encourage teamwork and structure, it feels even more chaotic than it should. The game needs better way to encourage team-based gameplay. Features like squad mechanics, better communication tools or clearer objectives could help push players toward a more structured experience. Right now, the lack of direction means that every match can feel completely different. Sometimes organized and tactical, other times just a mess of random players doing whatever they want. Despite all these problems, I don't think Arma Reforger is a bad game. In fact, I think it has a lot of potential. The new engine looks great, the atmosphere is immersive, and when the game works as intended, it can be an incredible military experience, but right now it feels unfinished. The slow pacing, lack of content and inconsistent gameplay make it hard to recommend to anyone except to the most dedicated Arma fans. If Bohemia Interactive continues to develop the game, adding more weapons, improving the pacing, fixing the gameplay balance, then maybe one day Reforger will become the game it's meant to be. Arma Reforger is an interesting experiment. It's built on the new engine, it looks stunning, and it promises to bring the Arma experience into a new era. But despite all of this, it doesn't feel like a complete game yet. Instead, it feels like testing something that could be great but isn't quite there yet. Okay, thank you for watching and bye bye.